Board for Thursday, February 21st, 2013. We do have two public hearings this evening, and we have a couple matters under old business. First matters on the agenda are minutes for approval. The first one being November 19th, 2012. Any of the board members have any comments on those?
I'll make a motion for approval of the November 19th, 2012 Planning Board minutes.
Motion made.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I will hold off by not voting on that one because I wasn't present that day, so those meeting minutes have been accepted. The next one would be for the December 3rd, 2012 meeting. And do we have any corrections on those matters or comments? No, we can
Yep.
entertain a motion
Mr.
to
Chairman, I'll
approve.
make a motion to approve the minutes of December 3rd.
Second.
Motion made, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none. Those minutes are approved. Next would be January 7th, 2013. Any corrections or comments? If not, can we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion is made and
Second.
second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none. Those minutes are approved as well. We have January 24th, 2013. Any comments, corrections?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes of January 24th.
Motion is made
Second.
and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none. Chair votes yes, those are approved. And lastly, February 4th, 2013. Motion is made, and do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hearing any opposition? Hearing none, those are approved. Moving along, we have a public hearing. Our first public hearing is for rezoning of 14 and 16 3rd Street in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 5. The Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing to hear all interested persons relative to an ordinance to amend the Code of Zoning, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, with respect to Appendix A, therefore entitled zoning. The amendment would extend the existing neighborhood business zone to include both 14 3rd Street and 16 3rd Street, land which presently lies within the traditional multifamily zoning district. The properties are adjacent to 401 Bridge Street. Let me hear the case for the applicant, please.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, before we begin, I will be abstaining on this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Fischette. Thank you, Aaron. Can you state your name and address for record, if you would, please, sir?
My name is Peter Marlowe, from 108 Norris Road, Tingsboro, Massachusetts. And I'm here to answer any questions you have on the rezone of 14 and 16 3rd Street in conjunction with the development of the whole corner, which includes 401 Bridge Street.
So could you basically tell us what's existing there now and what your intent would be if the zoning was approved?
The 401 Bridge Street portion is the former, I grew up in Centerville, so it's the former Plunkett's Drug Store. It was a four-story commercial on the mixed-use, four-story commercial building, residential on the top 3 floors. And it encompassed the entire lot. And it burnt down, I think, about 5 years ago. The 14 and 16 3rd Street was formerly multifamily, larger buildings, similar to what's in the existing neighborhood, and those also burnt down, and then they were taken by tax take, and the city has them. City of Lowell has them for tax taking. So I've entered into a purchase and sale agreement with the city to develop the whole corner. In other words, the front building, 401 Bridge Street, doesn't have enough space to get any parking to put the building up, and they're trying to make the building look like it did years ago, so it has 3 stories, and we plan on putting a clock tower in it.
3 stories, what was the last thing? I didn't catch
3
that.
stories with a clock tower.
Oh, clock tower.
So as you come over the Cox Bridge, you'd see a clock there. I thought it would look good.
Okay. Anything else at this time?
No, the only thing we plan is the commercial mixed use on the 401 property, and then a 4-unit apartment building on the 3rd Street portion of it with parking in between both.
Okay. So on your plan here, the parking would take care of both those?
Yeah, we have one space more than what's required for both buildings right now. I've been working with the city, closely to develop this, to get it in what they're looking for.
You have anything else you want to add at this time? If not, we'll open up to anybody else in attendance who wants to speak.
No, I think that's fine.
Okay. All right. Anybody else here present tonight would like to speak in regards to the rezoning of 1416 3rd Street? Anybody here want to be heard on that matter? In favor or against?
Hi, my name's Heidi Miller. I live at 124 Beacon Street. I just want to make sure that the plan remains the same, that the 401 is going to be for business and not anything on 3rd Street. It's just going to be residential. I just wanted to make sure that his plans were remaining the same. It's tight for parking now.
Right. That we can't tell you, because it's just a zone change. So once he gets the zone change, he doesn't have to go by the plan that's proposed to us this evening.
Oh, I see.
You know what I mean? What it looks to me, though, is if he gets his zone change, if he wanted to build what he's proposing, he would have to come back before us for site plan approval. But once we approve a zone change, we can't condition it upon any particular plan. I mean, for example, we could approve that, we only recommend the zoning to the city council, whether we recommend for or against. And then once that has been zoned, then they can put anything else that would fit into that in the neighborhood, the neighborhood business district.
Okay, Mr. Marlowe.
That question actually
Okay, you just come to the microphone, because at home they can't pick up your voice. Thank you, sir.
That question actually came up, and we came up with a remedy for that. It was like somebody could take one of the apartments and maybe make it into a pizza shop or a sandwich shop or whatever. We thought that that would go into the deed, that it couldn't be used for anything else but residential. So it'd be something attached to the deed.
So it'd be a covenant that runs with the deed, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
And we're okay with that.
okay. That might give you the protection you're looking for, but for zoning, we don't have control of that, but, okay. Anybody else have any questions or any concerns? If not, I'll turn over to the board members. Any board members have any questions of the applicant, or any questions at all? Yes, Bob, go ahead. Just make sure you get the green light on, Bob. Yeah, there you go, thank you.
I just have a quick question. The plan says 401, 16, and 18 3rd Street, and the petition is 14 to 16 3rd Street. Which one is correct? One says 16, 18, one says 14, 16.
Is the 401 already in the neighborhood district?
The 401 is correct, and I believe it's 14 and 16.
Okay. So would the 401 already be in the neighborhood business district?
Yes,
already? Oh,
the 401's already the neighborhood business.
Right. Now, is the proposed housing going to be, you're asking for a rezoning to include that parcel? or not?
Correct, yes.
Couldn't you build it without rezoning that parcel?
No, we went through all that, and we can't. Not under the zoning that's there.
It's what, two-family zoning?
Yeah, so you could build just a two-family that's there.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're talking multifamily, okay. And that's allowed in the the business zone?
This is very similar to what we're building is very similar to what's on the street now.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions?
I have one question.
Mr. Lockhart?
regarding- Although this is not in an historic district, although this is not in an historic district, 401 Bridge Street did have some historical significance to it. Would you be willing to work with the historic board personnel? Just in the, how this building might look?
Just to give you an idea of my background, I presently own the building which is 480 Bridge Street, which is the former Lowell Police Precinct, the brick building. And 30 years ago, I sat down with them because I came from Centerville, I came from Christian Hill. My name's on everything I do. And I wanted something to look good, and I did that back then. I intend to do the same thing this time.
That's a nice little building,
Yep.
but, that would be, I think, appropriate if you.
Yeah, there'll be large crowns. I'll work directly with planning and development. There'll be a lot of woodwork, and I own a woodworking shop in Lowell, so everything will be milled in the shop, and everything will look to what it should be. Yeah.
Okay, that's all I have.
Joe, you have any questions?
It appears we have, running down the center of the street, a boundary between TMF and TTF. Is that correct? Did you say that the parcel where you want to place the 4-unit residential building is currently zoned traditional two-family?
Yes.
I'm sorry, just to interrupt, it's traditional multifamily is the current zoning.
It is not traditional two-family, it's traditional multifamily.
Correct.
Right.
Okay. What is it that you want to do that would not be allowed under traditional multifamily?
You would only, with the square footage of the land, you'd only be allowed to put a duplex in there under the current.
Okay, and extending it to, and making it neighborhood business, it has looser
You can put more in on the density, correct?
area
Yeah.
requirements for residential units.
Yes.
Okay.
Plus the 4-unit building is going to bring a larger tax base to the city in developing the whole lot.
Okay. How many, let's see, 4 units, 2 parking, I'm trying to do in my head the total parking space requirements for all of your uses. You've got a total of
We have a total of 19.
19, okay, 10 parking spaces needed for the 3-story building. That's 8 for the units, 8 for the residential units, and then 2 more
For the
required
downstairs. Correct.
for the storefront, and then another 8 parking spaces required for your
4 units.
4 units, brings it to a total of 18 required. You're providing.
And we have one
9.
additional space.
Okay.
We could have squeezed in a few more spaces, but we were trying to work with having some good open space. We have more open space on the 4-unit building that's required, but we worked with the department here on the landscaping of it too, for trees and placement, things like that.
Okay, and so it seems like the practical consequence of the decision we have tonight is whether that residential building back on 3rd Street can be a 4-unit building if we allow the rezoning, or if the city council allows the rezoning, and if the city council does not, you'd be limited to putting a 2-family building there.
I would not be, no.
You would not be limited.
It doesn't, it's not economically feasible for the price of the lot and the development. It didn't make any sense.
Okay. I guess I have some questions for staff. I'm interested in the surrounding residential uses. Is this predominantly on this end of Third Street as well as this end of Fourth Street, the properties along the rear? Have you done any sort of inventory of the land uses there?
I haven't gone door to door to get a determination of what building types are there. It's, as you might expect, all residential buildings, but the direct adjacent property to the proposed 4-unit complex is a 4-unit multifamily dwelling, and heading up Third Street, it's another 4-unit, and then when you get to the corner of Third and Reed, I believe it's an 8-unit residential building. On the other side of Third Street, it's predominantly 1 and 2 family homes on smaller lots. They're between 3 and 5,000 square foot, more closer to the 3,000 square foot lots. But like I said, on the north side of Third Street, it's predominantly multifamily buildings greater than 3 units.
Okay. Could you remind me, sir, in the fire, I wasn't clear if it was 1 fire or 2 fires. You said in addition to the genuinely tragic loss of that historic building on the corner, there were also, you said, 2 residential buildings?
There were 2 multifamily residential buildings that almost encompassed the entire lots.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, those were both multifamily uses?
they were,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like building a 4-family unit here would not extend multifamily use any further than where it was before the fire.
Oh, yeah, except that it's smaller in size and there's more open space.
It would be fewer units,
Yeah.
trading them in for parking.
Correct.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chairman, those were all of my questions.
Okay. Anybody else, further questions, Bob, of it? No? I have no questions at this time. I think it's straightforward for zoning change requirement. Obviously, if the zoning is allowed, it'll come back before us for site plan approval, and then we'd have a lot more questions on at that point in time, so. Any of the board members have a recommendation at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we recommend to the city council approval of the zoning change. I go by here every day, and this is consistent with what's in the neighborhood, and it's a vast improvement. I'd like to see that development take place. So I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of the zoning change.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? I'll second it. Motion's made and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Any opposition? Hearing none, so we have 4 in favor, 1 an abstention. So therefore, your recommendation is for approval. Do you have a date set to go back before the council for this? Do you know?
Pardon me?
Do you know if you have a certain date for the council for your next hearing?
Yes, I don't have it in front of me. I think it's I
believe it's March 5th.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, so
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
So if you get your zoning approved, I'm sure we'll see you back for site plan approval. Thank you, sir. Wish you well. Okay, moving along, we have a zoning amendment, narcotic detoxification of maintenance facilities. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 5, the Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing to hear all interested persons relative to an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, with respect to its Appendix A, therefore entitled zoning. The amendment will insert a new use to Article 12, Table of Uses, by inserting a new use under 12.30 related to narcotic detoxification and maintenance facilities, and would amend Section 7.7.2 by removing references to Section 12.3K. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, George Fiolides Jr., 133 Market Street, Lowell. I think I should start off by apologizing. I usually bring a much bigger crowd with me when I'm here at the meeting, so I'm almost all alone tonight. I apologize for that. But in any event, I'm here for a situation that we're trying to help a Lowell business stay in Lowell and keep its employees employed as well. And this is a wonderful organization that's been in the rear of the One Lancet Mill for almost a couple of decades or more, and in the city for longer than that. They employ over 35 people, mostly professionals, and they service over 800 people. The most interesting part of it all is that I didn't even know they existed, and after I was contacted by these folks and started asking about the operation and what was around, including to city departments and the police department and whatever, everyone, all of those people knew about this organization, but I was happy to hear that they had never had any trouble with this organization. The problem is that the rent is getting too expensive in this particular area, and the landlord doesn't want them there anymore. They're on Hall Street, near the stadium in the back of Warner-Lancet. So they've been looking around, and as they looked around, they've got 2 or 3 locations, which are possibilities. They have to be out by September, so we're now starting to move a little more actively. So when I consulted with the DPD folks about the possibilities, some of the locations, one of them was in the LI industry zone, and under our current uses is not allowed in that particular zone. So after we went over it, talked about some of the possibilities and whatever, was decided that I should probably come before you and the council with reference to a zoning change with regard to the use only. And after we put it all together, and this chart that I've handed out to you, I think points out what we've done here. This is in combination with the conferences I had with the DPD over this. We're not only asking you to now change this particular use as an allowed use in the LI zone, which is very important, but you'll note, and I have to admit I'm colorblind, so that's either yellow or green, the little dots there. I always get them confused, but on the chart I gave you, those areas that are marked in, and by the way, the current is down the bottom, those areas that are marked in would change from an allowable use under SP to a not allowable use. So one of the reasons for that, obviously, was that the others are very heavily residential or located kinds of things, and for whatever reason, it's preferred not to do it. So this is just a wonderful organization. I think it's very important to keep them in the city. As you well know, this is only a stage in the proceeding. If it's successful both at this board and at the city council to make the appropriate change, it still has to go before the zoning Board of Appeals if this is the location actually finally chosen. And of course, as part of that process, it'll come back to this board as well before it gets to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So I'm asking you if you would. I'll be glad to answer any questions, but I think it's a fairly simple proposition. We're just asking that this use be allowed in this particular zone.
Okay, thank you, Counsel. Anybody present here tonight want to speak in regards to the zoning amendment, either for or against? In regards to the zoning amendment? Anybody want to speak? Speak? At this point in time, nobody else wants to be heard. Aaron, I know by looking at this, when I read some of it over, it looks like if the zoning was allowed, it was also limit what we currently have in some of the other areas. Is that correct?
That's correct. I think that's what Mr. Laddies was just pointing out, is that on the table that was handed out, the zoning districts where the yellow dot is marked shows where the detox center now is allowed by special permit under the current zoning. It doesn't have its own use category under the current article of uses. It's considered other healthcare facility. So this amendment would propose a new use category under the table of uses, and then, as you pointed out, it does restrict them in a number of the districts, and then allows it in the light industrial with a special permit by the Zoning Board of Appeals. So it does actually reduce the amount of areas that it would be allowed in the city.
So just to follow up on that, so for the usage, it would all be by special permit in the new current zones that they requested?
That's
Since 2004, yeah.
Right.
Since
So
the
it all-
last
So
change.
for anything to come in under that new detoxification, it would have to be by special permit? Okay.
Correct.
Anywhere.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Any of the board members have any questions? I just want to clarify those, because I know I had a question on that earlier. So, Mr. Fischett?
Mr. Chairman, to your point, actually, I hate to admit it, I can't believe that this was missed the first time around, looking at the zones that it was actually allowed. Now, granted, it was a special permit, but still, the fact that it was an opportunity for something of that nature to end up in a very, very residential area. So I think it cleans that up nicely, and I think that similar to what we were debating on the marijuana dispensaries, I think we were looking at various types of zones where that would not have an impact on a residential neighborhood. And I think the proposed revision is appropriate for the use of this type of facility. And I think one of the benefits is cleaning up what was already on the books. I think that was something that was missed initially. So certainly I would be in favor of what's being proposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any other board members? Bob?
Based on the discussion we had at the last meeting, I think this has come a long way from our concerns then. And I think this is probably, it gives us 4 zones to allow something like this to occur in, and I think that's, it's justifiable.
Thank you. Rich?
Yeah, I
Question?
think, as long as we have the opportunity to vote on a special permit in any of these zones, that's appropriate. But I think we need to be aware of the fact, too, that, at least from what I read, that the Commonwealth's Department of Public Health is going to be issuing guidelines and regulations regarding the placement of these facilities. And they're not going to do that until May 1st, and I think there could be some very important information within that we need to consider, so.
If I could just, I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Lockhart. This is actually a different proposal than the medical marijuana amendment. Yeah, I know it's a little,
Detox?
it's very similar. This is a detox facility, narcotic
all right,
detox facility,
Okay, I'm sorry.
right? Which is, I guess sort of similar in some ways, but it's a different proposal. This is, the medical marijuana is a different subject.
Okay. All right, that's all I have.
Joe, you have any question?
To follow up on Mr. Frischett's remarks about the, I believe he used the term oversight in the previous zoning. To be specific, it looks like the category other medical uses is very, very broad. And breaking out this as a unique use, it makes a lot of sense. And I get the impression that this is not the only example of other medical uses being an overly broad category which might bear a second look. And so I'm looking very favorably on this proposal tonight, and I would encourage the city, as it goes forward with the master planning process and whatever zoning amendments grow out of that, to consider try to get ahead perhaps of other issues which might come up. Medical and then the medical field and the biomedical field are changing and growing so rapidly. I'm just left with the sense that having an other a very broad other medical uses category could potentially come back to bite us in some other unforeseen way. So I'd encourage the city's planning staff to be vigilant about keeping an eye on that and bringing proposals as necessary before the board and the council.
Thank you. I agree with most of the colleagues. I think this is a good example of changing this zoning to make sure that it's more definitive in nature instead of just, other health and care facilities, and I'd be in favor of the rezoning as well. So at this point in time, does anybody want to make a motion in regards to?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we recommend to the City Council to adopt the recommended zoning change of the narcotic detoxification and/or maintenance facilities.
Motion's made, and
I'll second the
have a
motion.
second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Any opposition? Hearing none. The recommendation for approval will be forwarded to the city council for the next public hearing, I believe. I think you have a date of March 12th or something?
Yes.
Good luck, Counselor.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Moving along on the old business, we have 685 and 689 Lawrence Street. The Lowell Planning Board will hear a request from the project proponent to clarify the project status for the development project located at the above address and request an amendment to the planning board vote accepting a performance bond to allow the release of certificate. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. That's the one down further. I apologize. No, the one before that was Moore Street. I apologize. I skipped one. New business. Okay, this is 159, 169, 177 Moore Street. I'm sorry, special permit amendment. This is the board will review requests from the owner of the property located at the above address to amend the previous approval special permit. The planning board issued a special permit to convert the Sacred Heart Church and associated building into 36 residential units. The petitioner requested an amendment to subdivide the property into 4 separate lots, the 4th lot of which would provide parking facilities to serve all 3 residential buildings. May we get a case for the applicant, please?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Attorney Paul Delory, representing David Piscatelli, who is the owner of this property. We're asking for a subdivision of the existing lots there. This matter was before this board about 2 years ago, in which the owner at the time, Brian McGowan, had requested a site plan review and a special permit to develop what was once the Sacred Heart Church, plus an adjacent rectory and an adjacent convent, and developed that for 36 residential units, and that was granted. At some point subsequent to that, Mr. McGowan sold this project to Mr. Piscatelli, and actually sold the plans and everything. Mr. Piscatelli purchased the property, began the development. He has since developed 159 Moore Street. That was the former rectory. That was 8 units. He has developed it into 8 units and was going to actually, just as Mr. McGowan had proposed, convert the 36 into condos and sell them as individual units. There are a number of issues, but as buyers come up, they were concerned. They said, gee, we don't want to buy into the maintenance of that church. We don't know how our common fees are going to be. There was some concern about trying to share all of these things. While this was taking place and he was receiving offers on the unit, a gentleman came forward and wanted to buy the whole building. He liked the way it was done. It was fitted out so beautifully. He said, I want to buy the whole building as is. So why we're here tonight is this, that this property over time was assembled by, I think it was the Oblate Fathers first, but they eventually began to buy these lots, and they eventually assembled 6 lots, and the church and the rectory and the convent sits on 6 pre-existing lots. Mr. Piscatelli would like to divide that 6 lots into 4 lots. 1 being where the rectory is, lot 2 being where the church is, and lot 3 being where the convent is. If you're picturing it, it's sort of right to left, going that way. The lot behind would be the 4th lot, and that would remain simply parking, as it was originally. The only difference, really, in terms of just dividing these now as lots, if Mr. Piscatelli developed it as 36 condominiums, then the lot lines would have no significance, or the parking would all be common area for the condos. The only difference in what was originally proposed is that we'll now have separate lots. There's no change to the buildings as they were originally opposed. There's no change to the footprint. There's no change to the exteriors. In fact, Mr. Piscatelli, as part of his purchase, is actually working with Mr. McGowan's plans and following through on the same plan. So essentially, what this board approved 2 years ago, 36 residential units, will in fact be exactly the same. The same number, 8 in the former rectory at 159 Moore Street, 16 in the former church at 169 Moore Street, and 12 in the former convent at 181 Moore Street. There are, 88 parking spaces on Lot 4, and that will remain the same. You would need 72, there is 88. That also includes the applicable number of handicap parking spaces, and working with Mr. Clausen, there will be a number of landscaping berms, so it's not just simply a parking lot. The parking will be addressed simply by, there will be a trust put on a homeowner's trust that any unit owner or building owner, either in the 3 buildings that are before, will have parking on that. They'll be beneficiaries of that trust. They'll have parking on there. There'll be a designated number of spaces. 16 for the first building, 32 for the second building, 24 for the third building. And then there will be the appropriate number of guest spaces as well that will be designated. So in asking to do this, really, we're keeping with the entire spirit of what was allowed there. It's just simply we're changing the classification. Mr. Piscatelli does intend, as the next phase, to begin renovations on the church. And his expectation there will be that on that lot, he will develop that for condominiums for sale. The third lot, again, it all depends quite a bit on market conditions, but ultimately, there'll be 36 residential units there as this board as it approved. And there are no other design changes other than what's been suggested by, Mr. Clausen or the city planners in terms of landscaping.
This is a landscaping plan that was provided by the Planning and Development Board that I'm going to follow.
Yes, they have actually given us what they would like as suggested landscaping plan for that, and that will be put into place. Each person, I might add, will have, in other words, the 3 buildings line up side by side. The parking lot follows behind all the buildings. Each owner, whether it's a unit or a building owner and a resident, will be able to walk right onto the parking lot from their lot. They don't have to cross another lot, so there are no issues with that. There will be a dumpster behind what is the church now, the former church, and all persons will have access to that dumpster. There's also a drainage system that's located on there that the homeowner's agreement will cover and will address the fact that needs to be maintained as part of the common charges for that document, for those folks who access the parking lot. Be happy to answer any other questions.
Okay. Thank you. Does anybody else want to speak in regards to this project? Just come to the microphone, if you just give your name and address for the record, please.
Mr. Chairman, board members, my name's David Frawley, and I've observed the progress being made up at the church, and I admire this gentleman for taking on such a challenge as to convert a church to these condominiums. And he's done a pretty nice job, I think. And Lithuanian church wasn't quite as much of a challenge because it was wood, but to deal with this church has been, it's admirable to see what he's been doing up there. And I just like to, being a neighbor, I would like to see you go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else like to speak in regards to this project? Anyone else? Anyone else? Okay. Aaron, I know you gave us a handout tonight with just a couple of concerns. The first question I have is, does it come in as a, Aaron, I know I talked with you briefly about this tonight, so maybe you can shed light to answer it in regards to everybody. Is it a subdivision or an A&R plan? I know we talked briefly about that today, and that was one of my questions by reading the advertisement, and reading A&R, reading subdivision, and if you could just answer that for the benefit of all of us.
Yeah, so I can hopefully provide a little clarity on that. It is a subdivision of land, but it's a subdivision through the approval not required process, because it's under the 81L exemption. It's the existing buildings prior to, I think, 1961 can be subdivided through the A&R process. Staff can easily endorse this through that process. However, the special permit needs to be amended to show the change in the lotting and the parceling of the lot, and more specifically, the way residents have shared access and responsibilities to maintenance of the parking lot, and including landscaping and the stormwater infrastructure that's being installed at this moment. So even though from a pragmatic or practical perspective, it's the same project, still residential units, there's nothing changing necessarily from a physical perspective, it's just the ownership and the creation of a trust in the subdivision should be amended with the special permit so that that trust is in place to ensure maintenance in the long run. So long and short of it is, it is a subdivision through the A&R process, but the special permit should be amended if this is considered to be allowable by the board.
So if the special permit was amended, it'd be amended to allow the A&R plan.
Yeah, in essence, that's
I
basically
mean,
right.
to make
yeah.
sure if we do go that way, we make sure we do have the right verbiage in place, okay?
Yeah.
So basically, the intent is to stay the exact same way, it's just a matter of
Yeah.
what you can sell off, what you can do, and how you can do it
Absolutely.
in today's
Yeah,
economy.
yeah. There's no, as I say,
Flexibility.
no, there's flexibility for him, there's no change, as I say, to the footprint, the exterior, even the interior, or the number of units. Everything is the same, just allows him some flexibility to, deal with one lot at a time, see what the market will bear, but, he built out this first building with the idea there were gonna be condos. I mean, it's hardwood floors, granite countertop, I mean, everything you would see in a high-end condo, and the buyer came in and said, I love it, I wanna buy the whole building, and so that's what's happened. I've represented for Mr. Piscatelli for 25 years, and,
So he must have been happy to hear that.
he is happy to hear it. He does beautiful work, I can attest to that, and that's his plan. He has some beautiful plans for the church also, so it's,
'Cause I know when this came before us 2 years ago, there was no opposition at all.
No.
All the neighbors were on board.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
even people who, gone to that church for regular basis, who've been there, and everybody said, I think they want, the way they were keeping the character of the building, they were very impressed by it, the amount of parking spaces that they had, and I know, we didn't have one person speak against it, which usually
No, I
is
understand.
difficult when you come to change the thing. I know it's difficult to do with a church this size, too.
even right down to the stained glass windows, to work with those as part of the design. It's a beautiful plan when you see the church, the way it's laid out, so he's still going forward with condos on that, but this is just to give him some flexibility.
Because the size of a church like that, it's sometimes very challenging to go in and try to
No question.
work on things like that. And then the other alternative, if you don't allow something like this, what happens with it? Just sits there indefinitely.
Exactly. He had one slight setback at the beginning when they removed the crucifix. That was a shame. He called the archdiocese, they have a beautiful gold crucifix in here, and they said, oh, we'll take care of that. And they just smashed the stained glass window
There was a
and
turret on the
put a
top of
crane
the
in
church,
there to get it.
140 feet in the air. They just brought a crane out. It was a stained glass copper place, and they just tore it off, sent the crane down, took the statue out, and threw a top over the hole and left it open to the weather. I had to go up there and rent a lift, and it wasn't even finalized, the sale yet, but the damage that would have been done, open to the weather, would have been tremendous, so I spent my own money, my own time, and I went out and I covered it, and then I had to have a custom copper fitter recreate the dome out of copper. It was extremely
It's
expensive.
very expensive.
Yeah, that stuff is not cheap.
Any board members have any questions? Mr. Fischett, I'll start with you.
Mr. Chairman, more of a comment as we, dealing with the Catholic Church selling facilities throughout the city. I'm also aware that St. Jean the Baptist Church, the developer, did the exact same thing, having to
Yes.
create the different lots, because that's an issue. Having the church is basically a white elephant, until you do something with it. And I understand the challenge with that. So I think that allows you to move forward on the site. I did walk around that building and peek in the windows. I think the front door is all glass all the way down, so you can see the front unit, and certainly, looks like the quality of the work is very good, in keeping with the spirit of the building itself. So certainly applaud you for that. And I think you've addressed all of the concerns in the memo from DPD. And I'm assuming if we incorporate all of that into a decision here this evening, you're amenable to that. So I certainly would be in agreement with what's being proposed, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else? Rich?
I just have one question that's covered in this memo dated February 21st, item 3. I'll read it. It just says, a brief review of the proposed trust does not include a description of responsibilities for maintenance of stormwater infrastructure. Can you just assure us that that is covered?
Yes, that is an accurate statement. When I was putting together the trust, I wasn't aware that that was going to be a requirement. I'd be perfectly happy to go back and address that in any final version of that trust. That was my error, only because I didn't realize that there was it feeds into a common storm drain down there that has to be addressed. Yeah.
It's a Caltech system that any new construction, all the water has to, I'm sure you're aware of it, has to drain on the property.
Sure.
And I just assumed that was gonna be a package that was put together, a maintenance package. didn't know that it had to be in the decision, and I didn't relay that information to Mr. Delory.
Anything else, Rich?
Okay, that's all I have. You're to be commended for taking on the project. I think it's it's an important asset, that church, to that neighborhood, and I'm sure the neighbors over there would appreciate it.
Everyone's very happy.
Yeah, I'm sure they would be, because it's been sitting there for quite a while now.
Bob, you have any questions?
I only have a comment. I grew up in that church, so I'm glad
you
to
know.
see it standing. And I'm sure you do a great job there.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Joe, you have any questions?
I have some questions for staff. The actions we're taking tonight, we are amending a special permit and signing an A&R.
There's no Mylar to sign. I can endorse an A&R plan on behalf of the planning board. The most important action to take this evening is to amend the special permit. That's something that needs to be changed. We can endorse the plan, but that does leave the property owner, Mr. Piscatelli, open to zoning infractions. Just because an A&R sign doesn't mean it means zoning, and that's kind of the critical reason why the special permit needs to be amended to reflect the new condition, the new legal condition at least, that they're seeking to implement.
Right, that was my thought, that in terms of order, we would want to act on the zoning permit, and then only after that, act on the approval not required plan, if the applicant's amenable to that. It's,
Yeah, I'm not sure what,
my thinking was, in theory, this board, in reviewing, making a modification to the special permit, could take some action which would influence how exactly you wanted to do the A&R. So it would just make a lot more sense to do the special permit, get that nailed down, know exactly what you're looking at, and then do the approval not required.
would we have to come back?
No.
No?
No, it's just two actions we'd take tonight, one after the other.
That's fine, I'm fine with that, that's true.
Okay. I think that I think that what we're being asked to do tonight for the special permit is much easier done in theory than in the practice of producing the language. What exactly needs, do you have a sense of what exactly would need to be added or amended to our actual special permit decision and the permit that was issued in order to make these changes?
You can go ahead, I have a good idea, but you can go.
Tom probably knows better than I do. It's just really all that the action would be is to adopt or amend the existing special permit. It doesn't change anything about that special permit unless the board wishes to, but other than the legal structure and the parcelization of the lots as been proposed. And the reason that's important is because there's communal space, there's shared parking space here. And so part of that requirement, part of that amendment would be that the trust be created and recorded at the registry of deeds, so it's established, so that there's, so that the board is confident and knows that there's legal, that all the residential units have legal access to parking as required under zoning, that there's going to be maintenance for the property, that there's a structure set up to maintain the parking lot and to maintain the stormwater system.
And so specifically, the action we should take tonight would be to amend the special permit to require the adoption of the trust.
I
would say to be kind of twofold. I mean, one, that we do, if we allowed it, usually, for any declaration of the trust, more times than not, what we do is we refer that to our law department and make sure that they're, excuse me, satisfied with the wordage on it. And that would also give you a chance to add in the comments that was added this evening.
Sure.
We'd also have them look at the homeowners association. And if there's any problems with that, you could discuss that with our law department. And if it's fine with them, it could be a conditional approval.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, that's actually all one document. The homeowners association is created in the trust itself, yes.
So, 'cause I know we had it handed
Yes.
out to us in two different formats here, okay.
Yeah.
So okay, I got you, all right. So the trust and the homeowners association is incorporated and referenced together?
Yes.
Okay, got you.
Yeah.
So the other action would be to amend the special permit. I know, Did you receive the letter that was dated yesterday, by any chance?
I saw it when I came in tonight to address these issues.
So you had no problem with that?
No.
The only other question I know is, on the back page was talked about the landscaping plan. I know, Aaron, you said, I know this evening they gave it to you. I know you didn't have a chance to look it over, but obviously you want to make sure that it met the requirements for all 4 lots, people to be able to get access to and everything else on that, right?
Correct.
So if we made a approval to allow the special permit to be amended to, with the conditions as outlined from Mr. Clausen in his memorandum dated February 21st, 2013, the 4 notations, you have no problem with that, Counselor?
I have no problem with
Okay.
that, no.
And the other matter would be to allow the trust with the homeowners association to be reviewed by our legal department to see
Fine.
if it meets standards?
Fine. Always happy to have a second set of eyes look at it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, in that way, usually when it comes to legal documents, I mean,
Yes. Yep.
we prefer the law department to take a look at it.
Sure.
And then if we approve the special permit for the amendment with the trust, the homeowners association, and the conditions outlined by plan and development, and we could either do that in the same vote, or we could do, or if we approve that, then we could make a formal decision. I would say, under the same vote, would be to allow the A&R plan to be adopted.
That makes sense, yes.
I know Aaron could sign off on it, but I think, since we gave the special permit, and the A&R plan was not approved under the special permit, I think it makes more sense to incorporate the A&R
Yes.
into the special permit as an amendment.
I agree, because I think in the future, depending on who comes to buy it, you're gonna have a lot of different council looking at this and say, they're gonna wanna make sure that there was an approval to divide these lots somewhere, that matter was before the planning board. So I think that makes perfect sense, Mr. Chairman, yes. Could I just add one thing? I noticed in the prior decision, that it actually, they don't make reference to them being condo units. It's approved for 36 residential units, so perhaps the other fellow was thinking the same thing, that there might be some flexibility he may need down the line.
Basically, there was talk about that at that evening,
Yes.
Council. He, you know, basically, he said, what the market would bring in.
Yes.
You'd like to go to condominiums if possible.
Yes.
If not, the option of rental units, but,
Right.
and obviously, we totally understand that, and I think a lot of us were happy to see that he took, you know, same as your client, the opportunity to try to better the situation up there.
Yes.
I think it was sitting dormant for so long, and it's an old building, I know it's a lot of work to be done.
Yes.
I know he did another church in this city, and we looked at it, and it came out very, very nice, and
Yeah.
hopefully your client will do the same thing. Hopefully he'll give us a chance to come up and take a look if he doesn't mind, and
He's done a lot of good development in the city already. He has other projects in the city that he's completed, and very, very well done.
I know a lot of us like to go out, and while we're doing our sites, we stop in and say, can we look, and then we can use it for comparison.
Sure.
A lot of times we approve things, and then we say, is that what it looks like now? Especially the inside, where we don't have the ability for a drive-by.
Yes.
You know, we see the inside, so, if there's no formal discussion, what I'll do is I would incorporate that into a motion, being that we'll amend the special permit to include the conditions as outlined by memorandum given to us by Aaron Clausen on February 21st. The only thing I want Aaron to do is have the chance to look over the landscaping plan. If there's any question on that, he could bring it back before the board under old business, and we could look it over.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to discuss the motion a little more.
After I finish making it, sure. Okay? So the special permit would be to allow the amendment, as indicated by Aaron Clausen in his memo, to allow the approval of the trust as outlined with the homeowners association, and to allow the approval of the A&R plan. So that motion's made for discussion.
I noticed in the previous decision, it references a specific plan, grant the petitioner to formally use as a church with associated parking and landscaping as shown on the plan entitled, and it references a plan dated February 17th, 2010. Is that the section that we should be amending? In addition to incorporating the homeowners association, in terms of actually approving the plan and what you said about to authorize the A&R plan, should we be amending that section and so that the permit will now read approve according to another plan submitted which shows the lot changes, the landscape plan, that we want final approval of. Should we be amending this decision to authorize construction according to a new plan showing the changes?
But the buildings are staying the same, right?
The buildings are staying the same. It appears that the actual physical construction of the parking lot is staying the same, and it's lot lines that are changing. I'm just wondering if having this approval of this older plan, which doesn't show these lot lines, is going to be a problem.
If I could, I
Sure,
think,
go
I think
ahead.
I might be able to provide some ideas on that. I wouldn't recommend changing the special permit approval to overshadow the original plan that was approved, that's referenced in that, because that was, that had 4 sheets, and it included the stormwater plan and utility plan, and had some details on things like curb openings on St. James Street. But what may be the way to address that is to incorporate within that decision a reference to this latest subdivision plan, really this 4-parcel plan that creates the shared parking space, so that you have the original reference, which still has, it carries weight and meaning because the proposed infrastructure was approved with that decision, but incorporate into that this latest plan for parcelization of the lot, and part of that we can reference that in the amendment, and then the conditions would be that the trust be reviewed and recorded as discussed with the board, making sure that access is available and maintenance, and then solicitors review and approval of that. And so that would then just be kind of ascribed to that original decision. That doesn't overshadow, doesn't overtake it. It's just an amendment to it that attaches this latest plan as a parcelization of that lot. Does that make sense? So you're not replacing the original plans that were approved. You're just incorporating this latest parcelization as a part of that approval.
So you would be adding at the end of that paragraph that ends landscaping, parking, and utility plans, comma, as well as plan dated such and such, to reference a new A&R plan.
That's something I think, that's what I'd recommend.
Because if we haven't changed that, then that still stands as part of the special permit.
Correct.
Because we're not making a change to that amendment. So that's still incorporated.
Right, exactly. That's why you wouldn't want to replace the original plan set that's referenced in that decision with this plan, because there are details in that plan set that are still relevant. Just that this is an additive to that. That this allows the parcelization as proposed, and the legal structure and ownership as proposed is allowed.
So do you feel we need that in that recommendation, or do you think it stands alone with the amendment that we made without it?
I think it stands in the motion that you made. It's just how I would draft it out in the decision. And what
Are we going to need to wait until there is an actual A&R plan with a date on it that we can then reference in the language before taking an official action on the
I think
special?
as long as we approve the A&R plan tonight, then it's incorporated by reference.
Do we have
As long as it doesn't change, because the parcels are delineated on this plan, and if it changes,
Right.
if it needs additional endorsement or review by the planning board, it can go back to the planning board. But if it stays the same, it can be approved with the special permit amendment and then endorsed at a
Because
later
the lot
date.
lines is changing, right, Counselor?
Yes, that's correct.
I had the
Yes.
surveyor go out when he did that plan, and actually, there's dots on the plan. He actually hammered bounds into the ground in the parking lot and the curbing to reference the points that are on that plan, so.
Makes it clearer.
Easily, to go out there and shoot it and look at it, and I made sure when he did the plan that the bounds are in the ground.
Any further discussion?
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? No. It's approved. Good luck. We wish you well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, gentlemen,
You're
thank you.
So administratively, do we need to sign a special permit the way that we sign subdivision and A&Rs? Administratively, do we need to, does the board sign special permits the way that we sign A&Rs and subdivision plans?
No, this year, he could have signed off on the A&R plan. But I think we want to make it clear and easy on this special permit amendment, because it wasn't there before.
We don't sign on special
No.
permit.
So on terms of the special permit, we've taken all the action that we're going to take. It's in their hands now. And at some point, there's going to be a Mylar of an A&R presented for our signatures? Or
He can sign it on behalf.
And signs,
Yeah.
okay.
He can either sign it with or without, I mean, usually if it requires the A&R under the chapter 40, he can sign it without our approval. When there's something that's in question where we've already made a decision on a special permit, it should come before us for our approval, because the fact it wasn't in front of us to begin with. And that would tidy it up that would cause confusion down the road. Sometimes if there's ones that he's not real comfortable about, or there's an issue that he thinks that the board should be aware of, he would bring those A&R plans into us under old business to look it over, or sometimes ask us to sign off on them where he doesn't feel 100% comfortable. But he is designated, and we have 2 other people on staff now who can sign. I think we amended them as they came on board.
Yeah, Adam Bakies is able to endorse on behalf of the planning board.
Did we allow Joe yet? I think we allowed Joe, didn't we?
And maybe Joe Janowitz, yeah, I think we did update it recently.
Yeah.
There's been some changes because there's been some shuffling around, but
Because usually as we have staff turn, sometimes we change them a little bit.
yeah.
So we might be needing somebody else.
There's at least 3 of us staff that can endorse on behalf of the planning board.
Right.
As the chairman pointed out, if it's a clear-cut A&R, it's entitled to be, project is entitled to be endorsed on the A&R process, I'll just endorse it on the board's behalf and provide a report so that you know it's happened at least at a later date. But if there's any question or, in this case, if it's tied to a special permit, and particularly in the case where we feel the special permit needs to be amended to include and incorporate the proposed subdivision, the parcelization of the lot, we'll bring it back to the board for approval. But typically, what we've done since I've been working with the board is that there'd be a vote to endorse it under the A&R, and then I would just sign it on behalf of the planning board after a vote has been taken. It seldom has someone actually brought in a Mylar for the board's signature.
And sometimes what we'll do is, ones that have already been approved, have been allowed by law, by right, he'll give it to us under old business, so give informational purpose for us, so we know that it's been approved without our consideration.
Okay.
Because that happened in a couple of places where people come in and complain about them, and they didn't, and they said that, staff was at fault, planning board was at fault, and then we said, no, the law says we don't have that decision. And people who understood land use well got that issue, general public, in a lot of cases, didn't understand it quite as clear as staff and the board members did, and said we had no choice in the matter. And then as a result of that, we had some zoning changes.
Yeah, I remember the case you're talking about. We just took action on the special permit. Should we take a vote on the A&R?
That was incorporated there.
Incorporated.
I said to have the A&R approved, because that had to be approved for the special permit to be amended, because the A&R wasn't there before. So part of the motion I made was to allow the A&R to be approved, because that wasn't there before, because I don't think we could do it separately, due to the fact that, because it wasn't part of the vote on the special permit to begin with. So I don't think he couldn't sign off on it. I don't think you'd have the right to sign off on it, because it wasn't an approval under the special permit approval to begin with.
Yeah, I think this one was a unclear one. It's possible that it could have been endorsed under the 81L exemption, which is an exemption for properties that were, buildings that were constructed, multiple buildings that were constructed prior to 1961, I think is the date, which is before subdivision control law. It possibly could have been endorsed under that exemption. However, it would have likely eventually would have been non-compliant with the special permit that was originally issued. And certainly, as soon as that lot, the first building lot, was sold off to a separate parcel owner, they're no longer compliant towards zoning and would lose their certificate of occupancy because they don't have parking from a legal standpoint. So that even if we could have endorsed it, even if I could have endorsed it on behalf of the planning board under that exemption, there are zoning implications. And so it's better to get the special permit amended to reflect the new lotting of the parts of the lots, the layout of them, and the legal structure, so that going forward, it's very clear, it's recorded. Everybody who buys into the property has access, it has maintenance responsibilities, so that going from the board's perspective, it's maintained as intended, as it was approved, and it's also, parking is maintained for all the residential units. I think that's the key piece of this vote of the special permit amendment, is that what is being created here was a fourth lot, or fourth parcel, that's shared parking, that's owned by all of the other three lots, whether it's one owner, two owners, or three owners, or whatever. So that was the key distinction between the initial special permit and this one. Without that approved in the special permit, any A&R that was endorsed on it is iffy from a zoning perspective.
From a zoning perspective, not from a subdivision perspective.
Correct.
If he'd drawn his lines, he'd just gotten himself in zoning trouble.
Correct.
So I think by throwing that in there with the motion, I think it makes it a lot cleaner. I think even council agreed that
Yeah.
if it's in there, it's clear, everybody's on board.
Yep.
They go to registry, they look at it, they read it, they know it's there.
That's right.
But now you're like, well, does this come here, what goes there, and then could end up for, when they go for finance in the future, could cause problems and things of that type of nature, you know? So this way, it's clear that what the requirements are of the special permit.
Absolutely. Yep.
Because we didn't have the A&R before, so I think if we just put it in, it clarifies it.
Okay, and good, so the minutes will reflect that the chairman's motion
Covered the A&R.
covered both incorporating the A&R into the, incorporating the A&R by reference into the special permit decision, as well as an authorization to sign the A&R.
Right.
The minutes will show that it did both that, great.
Yeah, so we covered that way. Okay. So moving along, we have another matter under old business, which is 685, 689 Lawrence Street. Lowell Planning Board will hear a request from the project proponent to clarify the project status for the development project located at the above address, and requested amendment to the planning board vote accepting a performance bond to allow the release of the certificate of occupancy for residential units. The project previously received the plan approval to raise a portion of the existing mill building located on site and construct 24 residential units, 12 of which were to be townhouse units along Andrews Street. I believe at our last meeting, we made a motion to take the passport up, and I think at the time, the question was, there was 4 lots, we were gonna release 2 and keep 2 in abeyance, and then upon further, looking at the lot, I believe we've been informed that there's only 2 left, and the request now is to hold 1 and release the other. Is that correct, Aaron?
That's correct, yeah.
So at this point in time, can we hear from the applicant, please?
My name is John Donlin. I live at 208 75 Dunbar Avenue, Lowell, Mass. I'm here with Mr. Frawley to try to correct the mistake that was made at the last meeting. It was stated that they wanted 4 lots, there was 4 lots remaining. Actually, there was only 2, and we only wanted 1 of the 2 lots released. I have a contract with Mr. Frawley to do the work, which consists of the resurfacing of the parking lot, the patchwork in the parking lot, striping of the parking lot, the planters, the trees, and the engineering's already done. I've got solid prices on this work to be done, and as soon as the summer comes, we're gonna start this and get it out of the way as soon as possible. The bank wants to get it done. They put up the money to fund this project. I think the condo people, they've held up 2 of the units for sale. This is the parking lot and I don't know what else is not done. But if them 2 units were done, other work could have been done on the project. So we're asking to release 1 of the 2 lots, finish up the remaining stuff that has to be done, which will be done in a timely frame as was discussed at the last meeting. And that's it.
I believe when the condition we put on last time, they wanted to have it done in a short period of time. I believe it was by Attorney Flood, indicated they could have it done in April or so, but I think we gave them the date of June 30th or so. Do you feel that?
It's plenty of time.
You can abide by?
It's my understanding that Aaron has received the money from the bank. Is that correct?
That's correct. Mr. Frawley dropped off the passbook this afternoon with the total amount that was proposed at the meeting. It was $47,000 and change. Still need to get it signed so that I can endorse it on behalf of the planning board if the work's completed. So yes, we do have the passbook in hand.
I think the question I have, Mr. Dowling, we put a time restraint on by having it done by June 30th. Do you feel that you can have that
That's
done by that period of time?
plenty
I
of
know the
time.
question was indicated they might be able to do it in April, and then we said, who knows with the weather coming on?
As soon as the weather breaks, we're gonna start it and get it going.
So you feel that time frame would be
Plenty
no
of time.
restraint by you whatsoever?
We'll have it done before that, sir.
Anybody else want to speak in regards to this matter? Yes, sir. Can you state your name and address for record, please?
My name is Jeffrey Vance, 27 Andrews Street. I'm a resident of one of the condominium townhouses on Andrews Street. And I'm opposed, first I would like to correct, the residents of the townhouses aren't holding back. I believe that's what Mr. Darling just said, that we're holding back the occupancy permits. The planning board last March, I believe, held those occupancy permits back because of the project's status at the time. And at the end of that meeting, the planning board adamantly told Mr. Farley, finish the project. Since that meeting of, I believe, again, it was March of last year, Mr. Farley hasn't done nothing. Not one nail has been driven to finish the project. The parking lot hasn't been finished, the green areas, none of it's been touched. It hasn't been touched for years. Now, at the last meeting when he submitted the bond, we're all good. You know, we want to see him get it done. But at the same time, he hasn't met the conditions that the planning board put before him in March of last year, and that is to finish the project. Even the simplest of things he hasn't done. And as far as the parking lot goes, yes, he's going to do it, but he's not doing it out of the kindness of his heart. He's doing it because the DEP is constantly after him for non-compliance of the AUL. Mr. Farley stated at a trust meeting with all the members there that he didn't have to pave the parking lot. The state says he did, Commonwealth says he does. Again, I don't see why we need to release that occupancy permit until the project is done. That's my feeling on it. The board, you put it down. You guys told him, finish the project, we're holding the occupancy permits until it's done. Now the gesture's out there, and I'm glad he's gonna finish. I wish I could, be as optimistic that the outcome of everything is gonna be rosy. It's not, but again, you folks put that requirement on them, not the residents, and I'd like to see you stand firm on it. Thank you.
What did happen last meeting is when they put the money up, what happens is, if they don't do it, we take the money and the city finishes it.
Right.
And I think the intent by what the board, what we discussed at the last meeting was, we want to see it get done too. And we had some people here at last meeting when the gentleman who lived up there spoke, and they, as you said, the same thing, well overdue, they want it done. And I think the consensus of the board was, if we hold one or two of the units at the time, we thought it was two, and if they put the passport up, if they don't do the work, then we have the money to have it fixed. So hopefully it gives us assurance that it's gonna get done, because obviously, when they came in before, and they wanted the releases and it wasn't done, the board, as you well know, we were frowned upon it completely. And then, at least when they came back in and said, we're willing to get it done, and they said they could have it done as soon as April, great, because we all want to get it done, and hopefully it'll be done soon. That's why we said we'll give them, to June, that way if they hit any bad weather coming up, whichever, at least it can be completed. So I think part of the reason why the board acted at the last meeting was the fact that we are holding the cash by the passport, where if he doesn't do the work, then we take it over, the city goes in, bids it out, and we have somebody else come in and finish it. So hopefully our goal, the same goal as yours, is to get it completed, and get it done the sooner the better. So, you have anything else you want to say?
Mr. Chairman, on the DEP, they did request that Mr. Farley cover some spots in the parking lot. He done that to their satisfaction, and as of right now, it's covered.
Okay.
And two of the units that are rented, the reason they're rented is the condo association wouldn't sign off on the D certificate.
Yeah, okay. Sure.
At the zoning board hearing a couple of months ago, when he was having the mill rezoned. Mr. Foley stood before the zoning board and said that just as Mr. Darling just said, that the board wouldn't sign off so that Mr. Foley could get FHA financing. The application that Mr. Foley submitted to the board that Mr. Foley had filled out was inaccurate. The president of the trust refused to sign it because of the inaccuracies of that document. Mr. Foley called the president of the trust, threatening him with legal action. I believe Mr. Banja still has that voicemail saved, where Mr. Foley went on a rant because he would not sign off on it. I believe, and he then submitted another application for the board to fill out, which we did. We submitted it to the trust's attorneys for their review. Question number 2 on the questionnaire from the FHA financing is, I believe it's question 2, is the project complete? According to even the planning board at the last meeting in March of last year, the project is not complete. According to the board of trustees, the project was not complete. We answered that question honestly, and the application was denied because Mr. Foley seems to think that if the project is 80% complete, then that question should be answered yes. That's not what the question said. The question said, is it complete? We did not obstruct the sale of any units there. We wanted those units sold. We'd love to get Mr. Foley away from us so that we can chase him for his expenses of the parking lot, which he hasn't paid for 2 years. You know, he owns the parking lot. He's supposed to pay 66% of the parking lot expenses. Nah. Nickel and dimes. Nickels and dimes that he can never seem to find the time to write a check to the trust to pay. So we did not obstruct those sales, and I want to make that clear.
Sure, I mean, unless it's in regards to,
This will be very brief.
unless it's regards to what we're voting on tonight, everything else.
The FHA application number 2, the request from the trustees is the project 90% complete. We spent $1.4 million on the project, and we have $60,000 left. So it is 90% complete. They deliberately did that, and they signed it incorrectly because it was 90% complete. And that's just all I wanted to say. That it would have been approved if they approved that.
Any board members have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I just comment, and I can understand the frustration involved in the status of the project at this point. Question for Aaron: did the city engineers have an opportunity to look at the bond that was proposed? I know that was a question at the last meeting.
The bond amount?
Yes.
They have not looked at it, no. Based on my understanding from the last meeting was that the 47,000 and change that was proposed was basically what the bank was willing to put up to get the project completed, and that was that. It was based on a series of cost estimates that were submitted as attachments to that. I don't want to speak on behalf of Attorney Flood, but there wasn't really any ability to extend that. I mean, typically, as I stated last time, the city would have a 20% addition to any kind of base estimate, cost estimate due to time and inflation of costs, and it does cost the city a little bit more to do work, often does at least. Based on the circumstances, that didn't sound like that was an option. But.
Now, by holding off on the occupancy permit for the one of the 2 units, and let's just, again, worst case scenario, and it's not to comment whether it's going to happen or not, but just like anything else, there's a reason why we're doing it. If for some reason the work isn't completed, we have the passbook. What is our remedy with respect to that remaining unit? Just in perpetuity not issue an occupancy permit, or do we have some right to that unit, I guess is the question.
That's a good question. It depends on I think the state of the ownership of the property. The city really can't take my understanding of it is the
Okay,
city
that's what I'm
couldn't
trying- yeah.
take the unit to complete the work unless there was, if there was a tax lien that was placed on it at some point, then the city could get involved in taking property. But as far as actually taking the unit to resell for proceeds to finish the work, if the taxes and fees and everything are up to date, we wouldn't be able to do that. The holding the certificate of occupancy is just, it's incentive for the property owner to finish the work because there's value in that unit.
Sure.
But we couldn't really.
So that's the sole purpose really of holding off on the occupancy.
Yeah, primarily, I mean, the other primary reason to hold a certificate of occupancy is to make sure that the building is built to the building code, the state building code, and it's safe for,
Oh, no, I
occupation.
understand from the
Exactly.
actual issuance of the, but in this
Oh,
instance,
gotcha.
not in a
Yes.
generic
Right,
term
right,
of what an occupancy permit is certifying, but in this particular instance, it's, that would be the.
Yes, there's the one unit that would be held isn't completed yet, so couldn't be issued at this point because it doesn't meet the building code. But presumably the developer could finish it, and from that perspective, could be issued. However, it would continue to be held until the site work is completed according to the planning board's approval. So at that point, the sole purpose of holding it would to ensure that the project is completed, including the site and everything.
Sure. Okay. And then, again, you did mention we now have the passbook in hand.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
We do have the funds, so we're in much better shape than we were originally. I can honestly say at the last meeting, had the error not occurred and it indicated that there were 2 units versus 4 units, I think my decision wouldn't have been any different. Based on that, certainly I would go along with what's being proposed in the sense that we do have the physical passbook. That's a heck of a lot better than we were prior to the last meeting, because we didn't have any funds put aside for that. And we still have, although I'm still not confident whether it was 2 units or 1 unit, holding back the occupancy permit, I don't think really, it is a financial incentive for the petitioner to finish, but it doesn't really give us a lot of leverage per se. But I think the deciding factor obviously is having the passbook in hand. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Fischett. Anybody else? Joe, have any questions?
Yeah, I do. What we're doing tonight is assuring that the city provides sufficient incentive to the developer to finish the work he's required to do. I felt very confident after the last meeting that having the funds in the passbook account as well as holding 2 certificates of occupancy provided a very high level of incentive. I am less confident that having the funds plus 1 certificate of occupancy provides a similar level of incentive. And I think I would need to be convinced that there is sufficient value in that 1 final certificate of occupancy to incentivize, to make sure that the developer is adequately incentivized. I would appreciate hearing the opinions of my fellow board members who have more experience with, for example, lot releases of subdivisions, about what is 1 unit in this project really, how much of an incentive is that for the developer? Do you feel confident with the passbook funds plus 1 certificate of occupancy? Mr. Verchette, you seem to indicate that you did.
For myself, to me, the deciding factor is really at the outset, prior to the last meeting, we didn't have any money put aside for the completion of the parking lot. I did take a look at some budgets that I do have access to on some infrastructure. I'm not an engineer, don't claim to be, but the funding appears to be within reason. I certainly wish we would have still the engineers department look at it. However, it appears to be within reason. Again, and I'm going to reiterate, I'm not an engineer, but I do have access to infrastructure costs. And so from that perspective, I really, looking at the condos that are the units that remain, incorrect as far as I wish we had access to it if it didn't go well, rather than just the ability to hold off on issuing the special permit. And my opinion is the one versus the two, I don't think is a deciding factor for myself personally. But it's a point well taken. I think it's a point well taken.
I would concur with that too, Joe. Holding two is more of an incentive than holding one, but given the funding and the one unit, I think it's sufficient to, incentivize completion of the project.
Hearing that the final unit isn't actually completed at this time, that we would be holding an occupancy permit for a unit that isn't completed, that seems to reduce the value, the incentive that it provides. If I can ask the applicant, ballpark, what are the expected sales prices of these units?
They were selling at $199 or right in around the $200 range. It's probably $179 now.
And the remaining work to be done in the unit, how much is the developer looking at in that?
There's probably, between the two units, $40,000, $35,000 to $40,000.
Okay.
But I do have solid prices to do this work on the outside. I've already got the contractors and everything hired, to do the work in a timely manner, which is, I guarantee you it's gonna be done.
Okay.
Even before the date.
Okay. All right. That puts my mind a little more at ease, hearing that there is a considerable dollar value tied up in the release of that final unit, even given that there's work left to be done.
Bob, you have any questions, comments?
Well, my only concern is I had no problem at the last meeting about holding two. We've got the money, okay, but I worked for city government for 35 years, and it costs us twice as much to do work as it does for a private individual. We have to pay all kinds of premiums because we're a public body. And I'm concerned, number one, that the last unit is not complete, and what's its value. And I have concern that if in fact this thing went belly up, would we have enough money to complete the project to the satisfaction of all those owners that are there?
The bank has put up the money to do this project, the $47,000, whatever it is, and it's gonna be done for that price. The bank ain't gonna put up any more money. They don't have to put it up. We've given the bank solid prices to do this job. They've agreed on giving Dave Frawley the money, and, this is a big plus to get it done, to straighten out the predicament we're in now.
Mr. Dowling, in the predicament, or I should say the dilemma that we find ourselves in is that, and we can appreciate that the point we're at right now, but to the point of the homeowners that are there, it has been a considerable amount of time. We did make it very clear at the prior meeting that this work needed to be done, and there were several residents here, and to date, the work hasn't been done. So we can appreciate you being here and that you have a contract, and I think we're a lot further along than we were some time ago, and then we do have the book. But obviously, I think, and I can't speak for all my board members, but all the board members, but, you know, we're sitting here and saying, we've heard this before from the applicant, and we're still sitting here without anything completed. So, I mean, that's what we're looking at right now.
But before, the money wasn't there.
Oh, I understand. Well, then there is some real question about and I think Mr. Malovich makes a very good point. If the city has to, for some reason, and again, we're thinking worst-case scenario, the work doesn't get done, then, and we have to access the funds, to have the city contract out to have that work done is just gonna cost a heck of a lot more than to have the petitioner have a private developer come in, a contractor go in and do it. It's just, that's a fact. So, I mean, that's the concern. So even for myself, I'm trying, I've barely reconciled in my mind that the funds are adequate given the situation. And I feel a lot better seeing you here this evening saying that you're going to do this. But I have to say, based on the way the status of the project has been for quite some time now, that's a concern. And that's what, and again, that's.
I gotta agree with you on that.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's gonna be done.
I just have a question. So in the 2 units, is one completely done?
Almost done, yes.
What?
The other unit has to get the finish in it. It's done to the electrical, and someone broke in and stripped the electrical, so it has to be replaced again. But,
So that's the better of the 2 units that have, that's the one
that's
that's.
one of them, yes.
That's the one that's closest to being completed?
No, what we'd like to do is try to sell one of the units to get more money to work with and pay the bank the money we owe them.
You want to sell the 1 unit so you can use that money to fix the 2nd unit?
Yes, and also pay the bank, you know what I mean? We're into the bank, or Mr. Fry ain't into the bank, Mr. Frawley's into the bank, you know, and,
So you have the 2 units, is one completely done, ready to be sold? Or does that still need a little more work?
just carpets.
Okay, so that one's just about done?
That's about done, and that's what we'd like to do, try to sell that unit to get, you know, get more money to do the last unit. And this project should be done, what is it, June?
That's the end date we gave to it to be, yeah.
What,
Yeah, we requested, at the last meeting, they indicated they could have it done by April, and we said, we'll give you June in case if you hit bad weather.
yeah, it's gonna be done before that, you know, and then.
That's why we gave him more time, hopefully it'll be done sooner the better. Right.
Yes, the faster we get it done, the better off everybody is.
And what do you think I think you said, what do you think it would take to complete the 2nd unit? About 40,000, you're saying?
Probably 35 to 40.
I know the concern was, we were all hoping the sooner the better. I think that's a consensus by everybody.
As it stands now, the project's gonna work out. It's not, you know, but I agree with the board and everything. The parking lot has to be done, you know.
So the main concern is, what we voted on last time was to hold 2 units and keep the passbook. So the question now is whether we amend that to keep the 1 unit and keep the passbook. I think the matter was to come in to revise the previous approval. Correct, Aaron? That's what it's before us for tonight? So the question would be, is the board satisfied to release 1 unit and keep 1, where I know we're keeping the passbook regardless? And the time period, I mean, we put out June 30th, but hopefully, as Mr. Dowling indicated, it can be done a lot shorter and sooner. I think that would, and that's the hope, I believe, by everybody. So what's the wish of the board here? Should we have the 2 lots to request, because last time we had the impression that there was 4, we're releasing 2. This time they're requesting that we hold 1 and release 1 to keep the passbook.
I have one more
Sure.
question. Just,
Yeah, absolutely.
If I understand your statement about you had contractors ready to do this work, have you awarded these jobs? The resurfacing, the patchwork, the striping, the planters, trees, and the engineer for the amount of money that's stated in this letter, which is $47,936. You have contracts.
I have
in
everything
place
lined
to
up,
do this,
yes.
and that money will cover that.
The passbook was sufficient to cover that figure, right.
Correct.
Okay, all right, that, just clarification, that's all.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask the gentleman's point about it costing the city more to
Yeah, that's interesting.
the 47,000. We had a civil engineer come in and inspect the property. This was over a year ago. He estimated at that time the parking lot to have it paved at that time, a year ago, was $45,000. Petroleum has gone up. Keeps going up. So I'm guessing that his concern is very well structured, because I think the $47,000 for the parking lot is a little under what it should actually cost. If it was $45,000 a year ago, I would say that it's gotta be more than that now. And if the city has to come in to do it, goodness knows what it's gonna cost at that point. And if they're talking about getting this project done, lickety split, like they're talking, well, he's been waiting well over a year without driving a nail without those occupancy permits. What's a couple more months? And it does create the incentive for him to finish the project. Every one of us at Red Mills firmly believes if he had sold those last 2 units, he would have gone bye-bye. And we'd be left with what we've got. I'm glad that they're gonna finish. Really am.
I'm sure. I mean, everybody wants to be finished.
I think it was well addressed. It's the same thing. I mean, he was here last March, and I mean, if even the smallest of gestures in doing something there, where we could sit here and say, well, you know, at least he tried to do this and tried to do that, but he didn't. He didn't try to do nothing.
I do have a contract with Pavex to pipe, that's the price on the lot, to do the lot. And he's done a lot of work for me. So these prices are solid.
Any further comments, or what's the wish of the body?
That's all I had.
I have one,
Sure, go ahead, Bob.
why can't this wait 2 months for us to give a decision? So that the weather's able to see him doing something? I mean, you can't do anything now. I mean, he's asking for a release when nothing can be done anyway. And so we have no good faith that it will be done.
Mr. Chairman, the reason for the release is to try to sell this unit. You know what I mean, to generate some more money.
Right. That's the real issue, is the financing of the completion of the last unit through the sale.
Yes, exactly, so we can get going and get this job behind us.
And you're confident that that profit margin will contribute enough to be able to do that?
It would be a big disadvantage not to finish the last unit, you know, for Mr. Frawley. And it's my understanding that right after the paving gets done and the rest of this, the 4 or 5 items on the list, that you will release the last unit, is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, if that was a conditional approval, correct?
Yes.
Excuse me, can I speak?
Sure.
The only thing
Let's go to the
left,
microphone so people at home can
Sorry.
pick up the voice.
the only
Thank you.
thing left to be done in that unit we're asking for release is carpeting. And we don't put the carpeting in because some people want the hardwood flooring. That's all it is, the cabinets, everything is completely been signed off on. And if we have had this under agreement twice to be sold, and it was stopped because of the condo association putting through a negative response to the lender, and the lenders ran away. So it's very saleable, and what we're hoping to do is get the August permit, list it immediately, and these buyers will come back, and hopefully we'll sell it before we even start the hot topping. And the funding might not even be needed. We're not dropping the ball on this project. With John and I are going through this to the end, and we're not walking away from it. And John's built over 100 homes in Lowell. And he's guaranteed that these funds will satisfy the bank, and the subs are going to do the work for that $47,000. And it'll be finished probably by the middle of May. And I guarantee you that's going to happen, no matter what's been said about me. John's a very, very credible guy, and his word is bond. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
In a sense, we shouldn't even have to be here tonight. This isn't a subdivision plan in which the phasing and release of lots and the placing of a performance bond are an ordinary part of how the development process works. We're talking about these things tonight because things have gone wrong in this project. And we are trying to come up with a way to represent the public's interest to make sure that these problems get adequately solved in a way that is satisfactory to the homeowners, in a way that adequately protects the taxpayers of Lowell, because we now have this problem, not of our own creation, which we are being asked to deal with. This is the sort of thing that's going, and how this works out is the sort of thing that's going to stick in my mind. Mr. Farley, I assume this isn't going to be the last project you intend to do in the city of Lowell.
Oh, this is definitely the last project I'll be doing in the city of Lowell. I've been in the commercial laundry business all my life, and we employed 100 people in that property, and they went bankrupt in 2006 and 7, when John suggested we knock the building down and put up some condos, and that was going to be, I couldn't sell the laundry. It was completely dilapidated, so John and his son-in-law tore it down, and we got approvals for these 12 units. Then, as we went through, we sold 6 real quick, and the bank gave us enough money to start the other 6. And we're going to do another 12, and then we're going to take the 5-story building and put 30 units in that. It was going to be a beautiful development, but the bottom fell out. We sold 8. We can't sell them. We're having trouble. We had trouble selling them. Then when we did finally get the agreements sold for $179, they were rejected. So it's been a comedy of errors, and but nothing really within our control. And the bank would only lend me enough money to do it in phases, but all of a sudden it came to a halt. And when we reduced the prices, then we had trouble with the condo association because it affected their property values. But honestly, we plan on finishing this project and selling these 4 units within the next 3 to 4 months and give the bank their money. And we won't make a dime out of it, but at least we'll satisfy the bank, and the project will be finished to completion, and all the conditions will be met, I promise. And John will back me up on it. I don't claim to be a builder, but he is a builder. So, and he's going to continue with it.
Mr. Chairman, once again, twice, it has been told to this board that the homeowners association obstructed the sale of units because we didn't sign off on the FHA document. Again, I remind the board, those documents were filled out and approved by our attorneys. The question was, is the project complete? Mr. Foley had not completed the project. It didn't say, is it 80% complete? Is it 90% complete? Because we even brought that to the attention of the lawyers. And they said, no, the question is it complete? No. That's why he didn't get FHA financing, and that's why he didn't sell the units. We didn't want to obstruct the sale. I mean, blame is being assessed on everybody but himself. His realtor told him that he had traffic coming in, finish the project. What is he going to tell the people when they pull in and they look and they see the place in complete disarray? I mean, that was my only point. Twice since I had brought it to the board's attention, it has been said again that we obstructed those sales. And I can't not sit there in conscience and allow this to be said. It's inaccurate, it's slanderous to the Board of Trustees. You know, we would have loved Mr. Foley to have finished the project and been gone. He nailed himself to the ground by refusing to finish the project. And again, this board told him last March, finish the project, we'll release the occupancy permits. And at this point, yes, we want those occupancy permits withheld until he finishes them. There's plenty of money out there for him to get it done. He's got the money to finish the parking lot, finish that and the odds and ends. Finish the unit, get the occupancy permits, and move on. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. Mr. Dowling, the sale of the unit that apparently is just in need of flooring now at this point, carpeting, I would, what is the key component to, because at the end of the day, we just want this done. So I guess
Say that again.
putting myself in the position of the petitioner, what is crucial with having the occupancy permit for that unit? What is crucial in getting this completed?
It's crucial for the bank to get some money that's owed to them. There's plenty, Mr. Vance.
Well, and I, you know, to be honest.
I want to get this thing behind too, you know what I mean, and try to straighten it out. Gentlemen, but, you know, the money wasn't there to do it. Now we have the money, so let's do it and go along and get going.
And that's great, John. Finish the project, then you can get your FHA financing, and you can sell units.
They just want to sell one unit, and that gets money back to the bank. This, you know, and I can't see anything wrong with it, but if you have an opinion, it might be different than mine.
Right. But again, I'm just trying to understand how critical it is to have this release of this unit. I mean, how critical is it?
Well, the bank gave us the money with the assumption that we were going to get this unit released.
So was that how the bond was kind of?
Yes, now it was a mistake made at the last meeting stating there was 4 units left, and we're only going to do 2.
Sure.
So we had to come back to this meeting here and explain, you know, what happened.
Right.
You know, so the bank wants to get this out of the way too, just like everybody else.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is really, the bond was put up by the bank with the understanding that there would be some proceeds coming from the sale of.
Yes, and now that changed, the kind of the mistake made at the last meeting, which I wasn't part of, and that's why they had another meeting tonight to try to rectify this.
Right.
You know, and that's gonna help a great deal, push things along faster. Stay there.
Aaron, would it be possible by our next meeting to have the engineers department look at that bond?
Sure. We can look at that, yeah. We can have the engineers department. They have a matrix of costs by cubic yards, square feet, and they could probably come up with an estimate of what the cost would be for the city.
Mr. Frawley, would I be more inclined is, our next meeting is March 4th, is to have the engineers department look at that, just to give us some assurance that those numbers are somewhat within line. And then we're making my opinion, we're making an informed decision on whether we feel that's adequate. The idea is not to completely hold you hostage. If we have the money that's adequate, then I certainly feel a lot more comfortable with that. Ultimately, we want the project to be completed. I think everybody at this point wants to see it completed. Quite frankly, if it wasn't for the history as to how we got to where we are right now, probably be more inclined to go along with this. But the more we're discussing this, it's unfortunate that we're at this point. And I would hate to see us take action this evening and then find us, for some reason, not any better off, and feeling that whatever leverage may have existed, we compromised that. So what I would be proposing is that, I don't know what my colleagues, I would put that in the form of a motion, is that we would postpone this matter until our March 4th meeting, where we would get a report from the engineers department regarding the adequacy of the bond that's been posted. That's what I would have liked in the first place. It was presented that evening. I have an issue with things like that, and it happens more times than I care to see. But I would put that in the form of a motion and see what my colleagues feel.
I would second the motion. That sounds like a reasonable and safe course to take.
Any discussion on the motion? If not, we have a motion on the floor made in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes yes. So we'll see you on March 4th.
All right, thank you.
Good luck. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, there's another idea on this matter that I thought I might just throw out and see what people think about it. What we're talking about here is concern about the city having adequate recourse and adequate funds in the worst case scenario, which is that the city ends up responsible for this work. It was discussed earlier about the difference between having the city holding an occupancy permit versus the city having a path to actually take the unit. It occurs to me that one way that the city could feel much more confident in both the level of incentive provided to the developer, as well as having access to the resources necessary should the city have to do the work, would be for the applicant to enter into some sort of agreement in case of his inability to finish the work. I'm not going to put that into any kind of a motion, but it is perhaps something that would be worth thinking about. A way that the applicant wouldn't have to come up with additional funds at this time in order to satisfy the city's concern about whether it's going to have adequate recourse and as well as adequate incentive to get this finished off. Like I said, I'm not making a motion. I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay. All right. The motion made, we'll see you on March 4th. Thank you.
You're all set.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Moving along, the next matter we have under notices of betting towns, we have a ZBA notice. It looks like they have, yes. No problem.
Oh, sure.
Doesn't matter to us. I mean, we're here to, listen to everybody's concern, and, I think our feeling, we want it done too. I mean, I know you want it done, we want it done. Okay,
I'm willing to bet.
okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to zoning board of appeal notices. These are matters that come before us recommendation only, and they'll be before the zoning board of appeals on February 25th. They have a special permit and variances under Midway Cost Center, INC, on 1774 Middlesex Street. The applicant proposes to retrofit construct an addition in order to accommodate for an automotive repair garage without meeting parking requirements under the table of uses. What's the special permit, because it's not in the right zone?
Yeah, the auto repair requires a special permit in regional retail, so they need the special
So the
permit for
variances are
that.
parking, but they need a special permit. Okay.
Yeah, they're seeking both.
We do have a copy of the plot plan, inside of Middlesex Street. Looks like it's on the corner of Columbia Ave, which we know very well.
Yeah, this is an area that the board's probably very familiar with.
Very, very well.
There's some inconsistencies between the print and what's written here. It says, about the parking, it says, where is it? Without meeting parking requirements. And yet on the print, it has required 13, proposed 15. So they're short too?
Yes, but I think the other issue is the drive lanes are narrower than what's required in that zoning district.
Oh, the drive.
It's also dimensional, yeah, right, exactly, the
Oh,
drive
all
lanes. I
right,
think it's
I
the
didn't
dimensions of the properties. One other item that we noted was that the ADA parking space is not to requirements. It's supposed to be 8 and 8 at a minimum, 8 feet wide for the stall, and then 8 feet hatching for the clear space, and they have, I think it's 8 and 7. So that needs to be addressed in some way, and that's something that actually they can't seek a variance from. That's part of the building code requirement, actually. Yeah, that's they could. Well, let me rephrase. They could seek a variance, but it would be from the BBRS. It wouldn't be from the state, not the ZBA.
And the other thing I noticed here was, on the print, it says the dumpster to be removed.
Yeah, from that location, where they're gonna put it back somewhere, who knows?
But it's, they haven't relocated it anywhere, so.
Right.
It all adds up to a very tight
It does.
In one,
lot on a very busy intersection. I would make a motion for denial.
one point might be worth bringing up is that the parking spaces for this auto repair, are we talking about spaces that the public would use, park their cars and come in like at a retail establishment, or are we talking about places where the auto repair business puts its cars? Because the issue of a narrower drive lane is much less important if we're talking about the auto repair business moving cars around than if we're talking about customers coming in and out.
So I can probably provide some clarification on it. Those parking spaces are required to meet the customer parking spaces requirements. There's also a residential component to this project. There's existing residential on site.
Residential,
There
yeah.
is.
They require 2 spaces per service bay.
Yeah, so the building commissioner has weighed in with some concerns. Is there's clearly some fire rating issues between residential and then the use category. I think it's F1, which is what auto repair is. And there's at least needs to be 2-hour separation between those two uses, but there's also potentially other considerations based on where the residential units, are they above, are they beside? That what's proposed is an addition, so it's not clear in the proposal is where exactly that plays out with the other existing uses, including the commercial and residential. So yeah, there's definitely some concerns from a building code perspective here as well.
The dotted line shows the difference between retail and garage on the first floor, I would assume, and I bet it's residential above.
Yeah.
And even that garage, is there an existing garage there operating?
They do, It's not auto repair, they install auto stereo systems, alarm systems, and I think they do some detailing there maybe as well, but it's not a repair garage, right? At least it's not supposed to, but I don't think it's what's going on there right now.
Is there any indication anywhere in documentation of how many service bays they have in that proposed?
That's where the news.
My recollection is one, but I don't know this
Not
project in.
specified, and that does dictate the parking requirement.
That's correct, yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
it's,
I don't
I
know
think
if
it's
it's-
2 parking spaces per bay.
And I think, Mr. Chairman, just my concerns as well is that it is a tight site, it doesn't have adequate parking, and on top of that, the potential overflow is, you can't park on Middlesex Street.
Right.
And Columbia is primarily residential. So it doesn't really give them, in the development that wraps around there, we put them through the ringer to make sure they had adequate parking and flow through that site. And quite frankly, I think it's pretty inconsistent to allow this to take place on this site compared to what was proposed for the adjacent site. So I certainly had so many serious concerns.
I think we have a motion denied by Rich with further discussion.
I made that motion.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Moving along on general correspondences, I think, Aaron, you had something you want to address to the board this evening?
So I did want to hand out, I know about a month and a half ago, maybe, Allegra and I presented the planning board with the draft master plan. And at the time, we had suggested that what we would do is we would compile, I think, at least, and provide a overview of the feedback that we've received. And I thought I'd just hand out that tonight. It's a really short memo. We did receive 20 pages of written comments. We had over 100 attendees at the public meetings. The good news is it was by far and away positive feedback, and I think some clarification. So I'll hand out the memo. Basically, some of the primary changes that we've made is expanding and rewording the vision statement, and I think that was based on some of the comments from the planning board. I think we heard that again also in some of the written feedback, is that the vision statement wasn't clear, needed to be more concise, so that's being reworked as a part of some of that feedback. We will be doing some translation of the vision statement, and then the introductory paragraphs of each goal chapter into Spanish, Portuguese, and Khmer, so that it's more accessible to the community more broadly. We're adding definitions and explanations for terms that people don't always understand if you're not a planner. We try to make it plain English, but even in doing so, I think it's obvious that sometimes things come out as plenary. So there's going to be a glossary of terms to help out. And then we did hear back from some of the larger organizations, institutions in the city that, we don't necessarily want to identify specific organizations as we partner going forward in projects, that it may exclude others. So I think the idea was that the objective or the action item that seeks to work with an organization or a type of industry is that we let it be more inclusive by not specifically calling out that entity unless it's clearly that entity, like for instance UMass Lowell, that we could get that project done with. So it was just to be a little bit more inclusive in that way with other organizations in the city. Take a little bit more regional approach in some of the action items. I think that was also something that was brought up by the board. We've reworked a lot of the maps and charts. Again, those were, I think, a challenge to read, so we've tried to make those a little bit more accessible. And then finally, how actions will be monitored and implemented. The charts at the end of each chapter are being clarified, again, so that they're more easily read. So I'll hand this out so you have it, but it's generally what we've received is really kind of formatting, had a lot to do with presentation and communication to make it clear. I think from the substance, we received, I think, more than generally pretty much complete positive feedback. Any kind of critique that we had was it was constructive and more tweaks here and there. So anyway, I'll hand this out. As far as timeline, we're looking to get the master plan to the board for the March 18th meeting. We're rapidly updating the plan, so it should be ready to go. We're actually going to make it a public hearing this time around. I don't know if there was a public hearing for the 2003 master plan. There is legislation right now that is talking about amending the master planning process in the state of Massachusetts that would change it, that would require that to be a public hearing process with the planning board. Whether or not that legislation gets approved, I think we've had land use legislation in Massachusetts proposed for about 20 years. But that being said, it makes sense to be at a public hearing. So in case that does get it adopted, we'll be able to say that it was approved, hopefully approved in a public hearing setting. So you'll notice that that'll be advertised probably next Monday for the 18th. And I think we're going to be sending it to the printers soon, so you'll be getting a hard copy as soon as possible. So, any questions on that?
Any more follow-up with the council, or you're all set with that? Or just come back before us, or do you go back before the council again?
So, following the planning board, we will have it to the city council for their endorsement as well. As the board knows, that the city council is not required to formally endorse the master plan, but we think it makes sense, since it's a significant policy document for the city, that they have the opportunity to do so. Interestingly, in that land use legislation that's going through, or potentially going through this at the state level, it will require legislative approval of a master plan. So apparently we're doing things how we should be doing them, which is good. It's a good sign. I think it's scheduled for either the day after the planning board reviews it or the following week. So it'd either be the 19th or the
It's not contingent upon anything we do, right then? I mean, it's just.
Well, I suspect that if the planning board were to not approve the master plan, that they'd probably not endorse it.
Postpone their decision.
Yeah, I suspect.
Continue it out for further review.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and that's not a public hearing. The city council won't be a
It's
public.
not a public hearing for city council, just for the.
No, just for the planning
Okay.
board, yeah. The planning board's really the local body that is supposed to oversee the process. But it is good to have the legislative body. It is good to have them to weigh in and endorse it as a policy document.
Just have one suggestion, when you publish it, think about putting it on disc too.
Oh, yeah, that's a great
Yeah,
point.
well, they have been in
When I worked
this
in
stuff.
Rhode Island, we did both, and a lot of people wanted the disc
Yeah.
form rather than the paper form.
You're right, yeah, that's a great idea. We weren't gonna do that. We'll definitely make it available in PDF format online, but we'll look at making it available. I don't know if that's a huge cost. Yeah, we might have to charge for that. We might have to do that. Yeah. So, thank you, that's a great idea.
Any further board members have any follow-up comments, or any new notices? Okay. If not, we entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. Motion made and second, all in favor, say aye. We have adjourned. Good night, and thank you, everyone.
Jerry, that bond,